In this video, we'll focus on, among others, some true stories that went on to inspire horror movies, whether it's an adaptation from a real occurrence or just a source of inspiration. In the depths of Russia's Ural Mountains lies an unsolved mystery that will perhaps never be fully answered.
I'm fairly certain that every single person who grew up in the Russian-speaking area has at least heard Dyatlov pass at least once in their lifetime.
This is a Russian friend of mine, and despite her not being an expert on the subject matter at all, I interviewed her to see how much she knew about this case. It's the inspiration for many horror movies, including Devil's Pass and Dead Mountain, which are very direct adaptations, but the overall mysterious atmosphere surrounding this story seems like it could also have inspired movies like The Blair Witch Project, Area 51, and many more. In the dead of winter, January 1959, 10 Soviet hikers set out into the heart of the Ural Mountains. Not the Urinal Mountains, the Ural Mountains. The group is led by Igor Dyatlov. Most of these people are in their early 20s, except for one 37-year-old. All of them are intelligent, educated, and experienced hikers. Their goal was to reach the Otorten Mountain. Now, why would you go out there in the first place? It was a challenge they willingly undertook to achieve the highest certification available to Soviet hikers, Grade 3. The group looked forward to the challenge, which would earn them a lot of respect.
But on the way there, they didn't get to the destination.
Now, Yuri Yudin got sick shortly before and could no longer commit to the trip. The rest, armed with cameras and diaries, documented their journey into the deep unknown. As they went deeper, days passed and nothing. They were not heard from. Eventually, a search party was sent out to find out why they hadn't returned. This is where the creepy story only begins. The people looking for the hikers stumble upon a scene that seemingly defies logic. The tent they were sleeping in was found shredded, torn apart from the inside out. Footprints led away through the snow barefoot. But why leave the safety of the tent, and why in such a hurry that they leave without their shoes? Eventually the bodies were found. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonoshenko were found under a cedar tree near the campsite, dressed only in underwear, suggesting they died of hypothermia. Subsequent searches uncovered 3 more bodies: Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, and Rustin Slobodin. These guys were between the tent and a cedar tree, positioned in a way that seems like they were attempting to go back into the tent.
A few bodies they found almost immediately, and a couple of them when the snow melted. I only remember that the bodies were there were some weird injuries or some very strong ones. I don't know, something wasn't right about the bodies.
This included broken ribs and crushed skulls, however, not a mark on the skin. This means that there was no sign of struggle despite the severe injuries. Most disturbing of all was the discovery of Lyudmila Dubinina, her eyes and tongue mysteriously missing. This too raises the question as to what brutal force would cause this.
I discussed it with my mother last week. It's weird that how this just happened. I asked her, what do you think happened there?
The mysterious nature of the incident was practically inviting people in to come up with crazier and crazier theories. Was it an avalanche that forced them from their tent, or did they stumble upon a military secret the government was desperate to cover up? It didn't take long for people to even speculate about ancient curses or weird creatures like you see in Until Dawn. But the official Soviet investigation was equally as weird. It was very quickly sealed, declaring only that there was a compelling natural force to blame. Now, the bodies were found between February and May of 1959, and the investigation was closed May of 1959. The truth seems buried as deep as the hikers under the snow. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't write this. I get help with writing parts of these videos, and that last sentence was pretty fucking sinister. Anyway, decades have passed, but the truth remains missing, like my socks after laundry day. What happened that night on the slopes of these mountains? The mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident remains as cold and as silent as the grave of the 9 who never came home. Okay, that last sentence was a bit much. Anyway, Yuri Yudin, who turned back early due to his health issues, was the only one to survive and live until 2013. The decision not to go inadvertently saved his life, making him the sole survivor.
Like I said, I'm not a huge true crime enthusiast.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's interesting because, like, you're not into this stuff at all, but, like, even you know about it.
Yeah, it's weird because I would be sure that this sort of thing is only popular among true crime fans, but I think that Dyatlov Pass is like this thing that like really every Russian knows about.
Now, I remember when I was in middle school and me and my friends started to dare each other to watch horror movies. There was one film that, from the cover alone, looked very freaky. The Haunting in Connecticut. One aspect making this movie even scarier was that it really blurred the lines between what were true facts and exaggerations to sell a story, making you question if what scared you was really part of the paranormal. Well, let's clear that up a little bit. The true story begins in the late 1980s with the Snedeker family, great name, who moved into a seemingly quiet house in Southington, Connecticut. This already sounds like a horror movie cliche. They looked for a quiet, peaceful home close to the hospital where their son was receiving cancer treatment. However, the house they ended up in harbored some very dark secrets, previously serving as a funeral home, a detail the family claims they were unaware of when they purchased the place. But that doesn't have to mean anything, right? It didn't take long for the family to report seeing ghosts in the house, dark presences, and physical assaults from invisible beings. One of the most terrifying claims was the spectral sighting in the basement where the embalming room once stood. The family described encounters with the entities, some appearing more benign while others were very aggressive. The children spoke of being touched and pushed by unseen forces, with one incident describing the malevolent force attempting to communicate through their son. I mean, I just warned the ghosts that touching kids is illegal, and if they do that, they can go to jail. Anyway, this is where Ed and Lorraine Warren, the paranormal investigators known at the time for their work on the cases like the Amityville Horror, come in. The Warrens took an interest in the Snedekers' claims, conducting extensive investigations and eventually declaring the house an apparent hotspot of demonic activity. But was this an embellishment to profit from a house with a creepy past? Well, there were many inconsistencies with the family's accounts, but what I think, and what a lot of people actually think, is far more tragic, and it's that the stress of their son's illness, combined with the fact of it being a creepy, lonely house, may have greatly contributed to the creation of a haunting narrative. I mean, quiet, large homes have always been an inspiration for horror stories, forever. I mean, that's how Paranormal Activity started. Well, a lot of time has passed since the story occurred, and it's been more than 10 years since the movie was published. But the questions remain. Was the house in Southington a portal to the beyond, or merely a building with a storied past? Nope. It's just a creepy old house. Probably, right? There's a creepy legend that originated from deep within the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. Man, if I were a ghost, New Jersey is probably the last place I'd go. This story inspired the last broadcast, The Barrens and 13th Child, and it's the tale of the New Jersey Devil, a creature said to roam the vast, dense forests. The legend of the New Jersey Devil combines more like historical lore, supernatural beliefs, and the culture of the region. The story dates back to the 18th century. A local woman known as Mother Leeds, according to the legend, cursed her 13th child while in labor, declaring it would be the devil. 13 kids, Jesus woman, it must be like a slip and slide down there. When the child was born, it is said to have transformed into a creature with hooves, a goat's head, bat wings, and a forked tail, flying up the chimney and disappearing into the forests of the Pine Barrens, where it has allegedly lived ever since. This leaves two options. Either the kid is the devil, or the mother was impregnated by a goat, a bat, and Santa Claus all at the same time. This narrative has evolved over the years, with various versions adding their own twists to the story. Some say the Leeds family was involved in witchcraft, while others suggest the child was born deformed and was just hidden away due to shame, eventually becoming the stuff of legend, which, while that's not a paranormal story, it sounds just as horrifying. Parents being so ashamed of their kid that they lock it away. It kind of sounds like Carrie. Over the centuries, there have been numerous reported sightings of the New Jersey Devil, with descriptions varying but generally aligning with the original legend. Witnesses have reported seeing a creature with red eyes, a horse-like head, bat wings, and an ear-piercing scream. Sightings peaked in the early 20th century with a particularly famous wave of encounters in 1909, where hundreds of people claimed to have seen this creature, even leading to school closures and a widespread panic. Now, haters will say that it could be just misidentified animal sightings, such as owls, and it is true that owls can have creepy red eyes when you spot them at night. Much like cats have glowing eyes, owls have the same thing. But a flying horse head? What the hell does that even look like? Nevertheless, the seemingly infinite pine barrens, a vast wilderness, is in my opinion the perfect backdrop for such a legend. Its isolation certainly feeds more and more into the mystery. But I want to know what you guys think. Are you believers or skeptics? Was there really a flying goat? Or did people just hear someone screaming as they were taking a shit in the woods? I will say that I've always been a skeptic, but recently, I don't know. I'm not saying that ghosts exist or anything like that, but weird things do happen. Now that we've had some lighter topics, I think it's time to turn up the creep factor again with one of the darker true stories. H.H. Holmes and his infamous murder castle. And no, this is not about a detective murdering people on the back of a White Castle. This was perhaps the birth of the American serial killer with true ingenuity of evil. The story is set in 1890s Chicago during the World Columbian Exposition, celebrating the discovery of America. Holmes's life and his house have fascinated people everywhere, and it's one of those cases that reveals the depths of human depravity and the disturbing intelligence of a murderer who turned killing into an art form. H.H. Holmes was a con man and serial killer who confessed to 27 murders. Some estimates run as high as 200 victims. Holmes was well educated, having graduated from the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery. This laid the groundwork for his future crimes in the darkest way imaginable. In 1889, Holmes purchased a lot in Englewood, Chicago, where he constructed a 3-story building that would later be dubbed the Murder Castle. The building was kind of a labyrinth, designed by Holmes to disorient and trap his victims. It contained over 100 rooms, with staircases that lead nowhere, doors that could only be opened from the outside, and a series of secret passages and chutes that lead into the basement. This is an element we've seen all over horror, thriller, and crime stories. The building was secret passageways, but I never knew that this type of stuff actually existed. How much time do you even need to have on your hands to create a maze in your own home? Holmes also seemed to have this pattern of engaging in relationships with women, convincing them to sign over their assets to him, and then getting rid of them to acquire their wealth. That's kind of a weird way to make money. And from what I know, his murder streak started with the construction of the castle. So it's like he planned all of this out very, very carefully. Anyway, the basement was the heart of Holmes's horrors, equipped with a crematorium, acid vats, and pits filled with quicklime, where he disposed of his victims' bodies. It's like the Saw movies all over again. Holmes's methods of killing were varied and gruesome, ranging from suffocation and gassing to torture and dissection. The Murder Castle was Holmes's laboratory of death, you could say, where he experimented with different ways to kill and dispose of bodies efficiently. The 1839 Chicago World's Fair provided Holmes with a steady stream of victims. Thousands of people flocked to Chicago, and Holmes took advantage of the influx of visitors. He lured young women to his hotel of sorts with a promise of employment or housing, only for them to never be seen again. The chaos and excitement of the World Fair made it easier for Holmes to operate in the shadows, preying on those who were far away from home and very vulnerable. His reign of terror came to an end in 1894 when he was finally captured and arrested not for the murders, but for horse theft. While in custody, the extent of his crimes began to quickly unravel. Holmes initially claimed his innocence, but later confessed to a multitude of murders in a memoir written while awaiting trial. It's probably not going to help your case, buddy. In 1896, he was hanged for the murder of Benjamin Pitezel, one of his known associates. So he killed a bunch of women, but he gets convicted for the one guy he killed. That's also very interesting. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.